What's up, folks? Sean the Average Angler coming at you with another video. This is kind of a viewer request, if you will. Okay, I had a request for a lake breakdown with a gentleman claiming that he can't seem to catch any big fish, so he wants me to break the lake down. Now, let me tell you, I don't need to break the lake down. I can give you some hints, some things to look for, some general areas to hopefully help you catch some bigger fish. The reason I say that, and I'm saying this not to belittle anybody, but so that anybody else in a similar situation can look at their fishing and possibly correct whatever it is that's causing us to catch the same old small fish all the time. We kind of talked a little bit about this the first day I was sick, and I kind of had the discussion, right? And it was, why am I not becoming a better angler? So if you didn't watch that one, go back and watch that one because it's going to tie into what I'm going to talk about here. I do know the body of water the gentleman's talking about. It's McClure, which is a small highland reservoir, if you will, fed by a cold water river. It's not necessarily a cold water lake, but it is fed by a cold water river coming out of Yosemite National Park. The predominant species of bass in said lake is spotted bass. We all know the world record's over 10-pound spotted bass, so that doesn't mean anything other than you're probably not going to run into a 20-pounder in the lake. That said, there are largemouth. First, let's talk about areas. And what do I look for in lakes? What do I look for in lakes that I'm not familiar with? Because sometimes you get on a big body of water in a dam reservoir, right? I'll tell you, this is one of my first golden rules. And I really can't believe I'm telling you all this, but I like you. And if you hit that subscribe button, I may bring you some more juice. Who knows? I kind of give up quite a bit of juice. For those that don't know, I am Sean the Average Angler. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Like if you are inclined. Leave a comment below. Let's have a conversation. It helps the algorithm, helps the channel grow. All right, one of my general rules of thumb. Number one, for a reservoir, main body always tends to produce a better than average quality fish. Rule number one, okay? If I'm not familiar with a body of water, don't have time to practice to cover all the different arms, like on Orville, there's 4 or 5, right? Take a long time. I would tend to stay on the main body. Now, depending on the time of year is going to depend on what I'm going to look for and areas I'm going to look for. Let's talk about McClure. McClure kind of runs north to south, with the dam being towards the south, and then there's a narrow arm that runs directly up the lake, and then it hangs a big right, goes down a ways, and then there's a big bay on the left. The two areas that stand out to me on the map when I look at Lake McClure, if I'm running towards the dam, there's a big bay off to the right, just before the dam, I believe it is. Bunch of houseboats and stuff in there. I've caught plenty of big fish in that area. Now, you got to fish for them. If you're throwing a little 4-inch worm on a dart head, not saying you're not going to catch them, because look, man, just about any bait you use can catch a giant fish. If we want to catch bigger fish, we need to use a bait that is more suited to catching a bigger fish. Baits like a jig. I used to hammer the bass there on a 3/4 ounce twin-tailed Yamamoto Spider Jig. 3/4 ounce. That's important. It's not a 1/2 ounce. It's completely different than a 1/2 ounce. And then if you step it up a little more, a 1 ounce. These are jigs that hit the bottom hard when they're falling, and as you move them, they are creating a lot of commotion, stirring up a lot of bottom, creating a lot of attention. Next spot I'm going to look is that big bay I talked about that is on the north side of the lake, and it's protected from the prevailing north wind. There's some wood in there, there's some flats in there, there's all kinds of good stuff in there to hold bigger fish. Let me give you a few other things you could throw. Strike King Game Hawg. Okay, Strike King Game Hawg. And if you remember, I did a rigging with this bait on a jig head. There's a football shaky head. That is an owner screw lock. You could fish that on that. It's one bait I would try. Another bait I would try would be a stupid tube, but not your small spotted bass stupid tube. This one's not available anymore, but you could get the Strike King flipping tube. You could fish it on a Senko. You could fish a Senko. Senko catch big fish everywhere. And I know for a fact that swim baits play big at McClure. They play big at almost all of our highland reservoirs in California because most of them have trout. The problem we get in was mentioned in my previous video, why we're not getting better as anglers. We tend to go back to the same places to catch fish because we want to get bit. We tend to throw the same baits because that's what we have confidence in, even if it's not producing the results that we're looking for. So you need to venture out and try some different things. Things like crankbaits, 5XD, 6XDs, LV 500s. It's probably not the best chatterbait lake. It might be when they get up real shallow. The other thing to do is use your graph. And in a lot of those narrower canyons, you may get back in there and find some wood. I know there's wood there. You got to get in there and fish it. Sometimes you're gonna have to locate it and drop down under you. The main thing is you gotta get outside of your comfort zone. So the baits is another thing that we continue to use the same baits, even though they're not producing the results that we're looking for. The next thing we do is tend to fish the same areas. Instead of looking for something drastically different than what we normally do, we will tend to do the same thing. That big bay I'm talking about that's on the north end, that's kind of protected from the prevailing wind, it's pretty big. I've only fished it a couple times. And depending on water level, there's trees in the water. And in that lake, trees hold bass, a lot of bass, because there's just not a lot of it. If you're fishing for spotted bass, the heavy jigs work really, really well. Say that these 5-inch mag drafts are gonna produce, and you can fish them for spotted bass out on those steep rock walls where they can pin the bait up. Just cast it parallel. In the summertime, top waters. We got to get out of the realm of thinking that we need to catch 100 fish a day if we want to catch bigger fish. Glide baits on McClure can be very good. Okay, just get yourself the Lite Trout, I believe it is. I'll put a link in the description, in the S-Waver 168, and go out and spend some time with it. Any lake you're fishing and you're not catching the better than average fish, then it's time to make some changes, right? Different areas, different type of terrain. Maybe you're fishing too shallow. It's a deep water impoundment. I fish 30 to 40 feet all the time, and not just in the winter. If you're trying to fish those shallower depths, a lot of times, the only time those fish are going to come up shallow is to spawn. They didn't get big by being stupid. A lot of times your normal fish are in 15 to 25 feet. Well, your better than normal fish might be in 30 to 35 feet. They don't need to sit up there in that same area. We just have to learn to accept the fact that if we're fishing for those better fish, we may not catch as many fish throughout the day. Now, that said, brown and purple football jig, the 3/4 or 1 ounce twin tail Yamamotos in a green pumpkin purple, something like that, green pumpkin purple gold, very popular colors. They get bit. And the last time I was there, I can't tell you, they acted like they hadn't seen a 3/4 ounce football head with a Yamamoto on it ever. It's harder to find in a regular jig. This is a sand tone. Color's called Purple Haze. It's a great color. It's green pumpkin with some purple in it. See, it's got the nice dark purple, like Junebug purple. This one happens to be 5/8. Now, in this type of jig, you can find a 3/4 ounce. Why the football heads went away, I don't really know. But on this, I am going to put one of two trailers, a Berkeley Max Scent Chigger Craw or a Strike King Rage Craw. Probably not going to get a ton of bites on it. Those little spotted bass, you're not going to have to worry about them. They're not going to eat that. I'm self-culling. The other thing is pinging a minnow. Okay, if you got forward-facing sonar, get out there off the bank a little bit, start trolling around, looking for them. Right now, they're going to be on or around points, right? The weather's getting nice. The fish are going to start moving up. They're going to start feeding. Now's your time to figure out how to catch some bigger fish. If you're throwing an underspin, underspin's a great bait. Get out of your comfort zone with the underspin. If you're typically throwing a 2.8 or a 3.3 there, maybe go to a Crush City Mayor, maybe go to that G-Rat Thin Swim, the 4-inch. It's longer bait, but it's still pretty thin. That's why it's called a thin swim. We got to give the fish a meal that's going to make it worth their effort. Now, that said, I'm going to go back to the jig because I've caught plenty of fish over 5 pounds there on a jig, and I can fish it pretty aggressive. The last thing I'm going to give you, and this goes for all of your lakes up there. Can't believe I'm going to do this. The Z-Man Fatty Z. Fatties, Fatty Z, whatever it is, okay? Link in the description again. Fish it on a frenzy nail. Graph for fish. When you find them, throw that to them. They will eat it. Don't overwork it. You don't need to. It's one of the beautiful things about Elastec. On that nail, it's already standing up in the air. The natural current in the water is going to get that thing waving some. When the fish are aggressive, you can work the bait. When the fish are in a negative mood, you really need to be patient. Let the water do the work for you. They will eat it. If you continue catching small fish, you need to move. Go try something different. Try a different area. It's a good time of year for this because right now, and this goes for every lake, folks, it's not just McClure. Look for those protected banks. The bays that are protected from the prevailing wind. Okay, that's the first side they're going to spawn on. The other end they will spawn. That's going to be a later spawn because that wind is pushing all that cold water from the surface and mixing it up down there, so it takes a little while for it to warm. I'm Sean, I'm the Average Angler. Thanks for watching the video. Like, subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.